Hello, good evening. Welcome to your one-stop shop for launching your ass into the great work. My name is Kris Nelson. My site is evolveconsciousness.org. And yes, this is the Great Work Launchpad, episode 23, Shadow Work 21, Fear or Love, Part 6, ongoing discovery into the great unknown of fear and love, charting new destinations and trajectories into the vast expanse of consciousness. So the great unknown, the Great Work Launchpad, is about getting people launched, right? That's what this image is. There's that symbol for the great work made by Mark Passio, truth, love, freedom. And we got some rockets underneath. That's about lighting a fire under your ass, whatever means it takes to get you there. So you gotta, usually that's with care. Eventually, the goal is to get that care activated. And up until you get the care activated, well, it could be, you could be guilt tripped. You gotta feel bad about not getting activated. And that's always going to involve doing some shadow work. And that's the aim of the game here. Get into the shadow work. Get people to understand the importance of the shadow work so that they can activate themselves into lighting that fire under their ass to get into action. Get launched. Get up there. And get involved in some way, somehow. Start small and grow from there. You gotta start somewhere and then you get jiggy with it. Hey Jerry, how's it going?
Good, Kris. How are you?
Doing all right. Thank you. So I guess without further ado, let's get into it. Maybe a little recap. I'm talking about alchemical gold as of late, and what that means is really getting into that care activation, caring enough to, having previously done work on yourself where you actually give a shit to the point where you're going to have remade yourself and worked on yourself to develop that courage, that willpower, and overcoming these fears, overcoming the cowardice, overcoming the laziness and the inaction, overcoming that involutionary force, which is what that represents. So getting out of the apathy, the ignorance, the cowardice, the laziness, and the fear, and starting somewhere, doing something. Could be helping someone out who's already doing something, and then eventually, work yourself up, get some more confidence. Maybe you want to do things with other people, collaborate, and then eventually you can do something solo. So start somewhere, build up, and eventually put your voice out and be part of that big choir of truth that we need to become a part of. And that's that alchemical gold. Until you get there, you don't care enough. You haven't worked on yourself enough. You haven't overcome your fears enough. So those are things that can always be ongoing in your life. But until you start, you haven't reached that alchemical gold, because that's about getting to the point where you're actually going to partake into the effort of restoring true freedom for humanity. And when you're not partaking in that effort, well, then you still have work to do. So you haven't reached that gold level, that higher level of the alchemical change process to develop that philosopher's stone within you. And what did we talk about last week? A bit about stop lying to yourself. Do you really want what you say you want? You got to want the goal, fulfill the requirements to get to the goal, and then you got to expend effort to achieve the goal. And that's the real law of attraction. It's not just whatever you think or intend to happen will just happen. Think positively and you'll get what you want. It's about knowing what you want and caring about it and knowing what the requirements are for creating that thing that you say you want, that you say you care about, and then acting. And then, what's going to attract to you? Well, the thing that you wanted, because you're going to make it happen. Ultimately, we're talking about here is the goal of true freedom, ending enslavement. And so we got to acknowledge that what you want doesn't happen on its own. That's part of the stop dreaming. We went into stop lying to yourself, stop dreaming, learning how to think in previous episodes, and did a bit of getting back into the stop lying last episode. And that's what you got to do. The next part is stop dreaming about how you think the world works. And, you got to acknowledge that what you want doesn't just happen on its own. It doesn't just magically happen. Like the world just works that way and just magically. You just got to intend it. We all just got to pray and have intentions, and we don't have to act in any way. And, all of the people creating immorality are just going to stop and they're just going to leave us all alone, because that's not the way reality works. So there's a way that you can not do something, but it takes action somewhere. Others are going to need to do the action if you're not going to do it. So if you want something, others can do things. They can act and they can get you what you want. You can ask someone for a glass of water and they can give you a glass of water. You didn't have to go get it yourself. Well, it's the same thing with the great work. That's potential. Except it's about a majority going to get the glasses to drink from. And if we just have like a few people going to get glasses, well, that's not going to cut it. Okay, that's a bad analogy. Kind of sucks, but hope my point's coming across there. So that's a maybe. Others can maybe get what you want, but if you want to be sure about it, you got to go do it yourself. And when it comes to the aggregate, which is how the law of freedom works, aggregate moral behavior determines the level of aggregate freedom we get, and the less aggregate moral behavior means we have more aggregate immoral behavior. So that's the sum total of all our behaviors and what we allow to happen in the totality of how the society or the area operates. Then we're going to get the result of what that immorality creates, which is certain degrees of enslavement as opposed to higher degrees of freedom. There'll be higher degrees of enslavement and lower degrees of freedom. So it's all about the aggregate. It's all about a quantity. The quantity is key here. So if you really want something, then achieving that goal requires specific actions. And you can't attain the goal if you have unobtainable requirements. If the requirement for a goal can't be met, then the goal can't be realized. So you could say, well, I don't know, something ridiculous. I'm gonna go colonize Mars. Well, how the hell are you gonna do that? It's probably unrealizable right now. You could have that as a goal, but maybe choose something more realistic. So that's the only thing that came to my mind. Something ridiculous, or I'm gonna go live on Jupiter. I don't know. You could have some nonsense goals, and if you can't obtain the requirements, you gotta have propulsion to get into space. Jupiter has a lot stronger gravity, so you'd have to have a way to not get squished by the gravity. A way to live there, because there's probably no oxygen. So if you don't have all those goals, those requirements, and you can't get them, then you're not going to meet the requirements. You're not going to achieve your goal. So again, that's a ridiculous thing, but when it comes to true freedom, it can be realized, and the realization of that goal is for the aggregate behavior to be more moral, so that there's not the immorality being created. And so the goal is to end our enslavement. So if we remove the behavior that allows for enslavement to be possible, then we won't be enslaved and we will reach true freedom. So That's the requirement at the end, but to get there, we need more people to change their behavior, to step into that alchemical rejuvenation process to remake themselves and engage in a true process of individuation, in moral self-actualization, to become moral beings themselves. And then I think I mentioned last week, that's the optimal way, and the suboptimal way is, well, you make other people stop physically, and try to avoid that. But if it comes to that, then you still need a quantity of people acting morally united that way to make the people who are being immoral stop being immoral. So the requirements for the goal of true freedom can be met, unlike that goal of you're going to go colonize Mars or you're going to go live on Jupiter. Well, the requirements for that goal probably can't be met. And the requirements for the goal of true freedom that can be met is moral education. And that is done through content creation. It's not done through talking to people on a phone, writing emails, going to talk to people on the street. That's not how you're going to optimally do it. That's something you can do, but it's not going to be the most optimal way, because we have technology where in the past, that might have been the only way. And writing books. Books are still a viable option to get your message out. You do work once, and it has the potential to reach many. So that's a one-to-many relationship. We're talking about the relationships of interactions between you and others. To be efficient in the great work is you have to create content of some kind so that you do the work once, and you don't have to keep repeating it over and over and over to every single person you meet, because you would only have a certain limited time frame of interaction with them. And say you were trying to teach them 200 hours of material, well, you'd have to spend 200 hours with each individual person, and you would only reach a few people, a handful, maybe a few dozen people in your lifetime, and that's very inefficient. So you're going to create content that is in a digital media, so that you do the work once in regard to that content, and then many, many people can access it. So you could write a book, and then the book can be obtained by many people. And what you did, the work you put in, can be effective in reaching many people, as opposed to you reading a book aloud to a bunch of people in your life. That's not very effective. So that's why the content creation is the optimal route. It's not the only thing you can do, but it is what needs to be done, because spreading it by word of mouth isn't going to cut it. It's not going to get the job done. We're never going to get there. So it has to be an amplification of effort and efficiency. And that's the great work. So when you know what the requirements are, then you can ask yourself, well, what work do you have to do within yourself to meet those requirements? So the requirements are moral education via content creation. Do you know how to create content? Do you know what morality is? Because you can't do moral education if you don't know what morality is. You have to have an objective definition of the difference between what is right and what is wrong behavior. So maybe you have skills to develop to create the content. Or what skills are those? Do you want to do writing or speaking or creating images or making video or doing audio? You can do that all together. I've done a lot of that. Some things I've made, I've done articles, and then I did the audio, and then I put images to the audio and a video, and that's like the whole shebang. So the requirements for doing the great work are the requirements for creating true freedom. There is no true freedom without doing what is termed the great work, which is to do the moral education ultimately. At the pinnacle, at the tip of the spear is moral education. Because you can talk about anything under the sun that you want, but if you're not doing moral education, if no one's doing moral education, then true freedom is an impossibility according to the law of freedom, because it requires moral behavior, the the majority or significant portion doing moral behavior and are able to deal with those doing immoral behavior. And if no one's able to engage in moral behavior because they don't actually know what moral behavior is, because they don't know what morality is, then you're never actually going to get true freedom. So those are the requirements to get true freedom, is the great work. And the requirements to do the great work is that aspect of working on yourself, the shadow work, and gaining the skills. So you can go to howtobetheTrueMedia.com, and Mark Passio does teaching. If you don't know how to do any of it, hold you by the hand and take you through the steps and teach you how to do everything. So it's very useful. You can go learn it from other people. You can learn it on your own. But if you haven't learned it on your own at this point, then you probably won't, and you probably do need someone to teach it to you so you can understand it. But it's never too late. You can always apply yourself, learn how to do things. You're like, oh, I want to do this. How do you do that? Well, you go on YouTube, you go on Google, you go on whatever, DuckDuckGo or Startpage or anything, and how to do X, how to create a video, how to record audio, how to make an image in Photoshop or Photopea or Illustrator, or how do you cut video, or how do you record and splice video and add images. And you ask the question, you can find the answer, and you can go learn everything on your own. You don't need to take any course. All the information is out there for free. You just have to apply yourself, and you can learn how to do it. I'll pass it to you, Jerry. What do you got to say?
Yeah, that just reminds me of sort of some marketers, how they say your offer needs to basically solve a problem and then solve another problem. So what I'm getting at is that people that start creating content that say they learned something, and I'm talking about video editing, say, okay, I learned how to add the image on the timeline, but now how do I add a cool effect? And then how do I do this? How do I do that? So you keep on learning basically little by little. And then before you know it, all right, now you're capable of creating cool videos and teaching moral truth. So it comes with practice, though. I mean, you can't really know what step F is going to be if you haven't started with step A. So yeah, that's what I was thinking about right now. And yeah, I don't really know what else to add, to be honest, at the moment.
All good. Yeah, people, it brings to mind that people can have, they can think it's so daunting and overwhelming, and they don't know where to start. And they're just not thinking it through. They're just not applying like critical thinking and trying to. That's what we got to get to, is you got to figure out, well, make a plan. You know, you want to do something, make a plan for it. What, like, figure it out. How you're going to do it. Use your mind. You can figure things out. You don't need someone to, like, give you the answer for every single question you got. You already know. If you've been into Mark's work, or you're paying attention to this, you already know what the requirement is. What is the goal? Laying out some aspects of it, some steps. Already got the steps. You need to know what morality is. If you want to teach about something else, you got to know what that is. You got to know it well enough to be able to talk about it. And then, well, how are you going to talk about it? You're going to write about it. You don't know how to write? Okay, we'll learn how to write. Take a writing course on how to do better writing. I'm sure everyone knows how to put letters together in a certain order to make words, and maybe they don't understand how to be a writer. But if you just try, you'll pick it up. You're gonna pick up how to do writing, how to become a better speaker. Maybe you don't think you speak well enough. Well, if you start and practice at it, you'll get better at it. Everything takes practice. You're not going to be the best writer, the best speaker without having done any of that in your life. Everyone you start speaking when you're young. You don't just start speaking all of a sudden and have it perfected. Everything is learned and improved upon. Same with writing. Same with, you're going to make a video. Well, your first video probably suck. And then the next one you can learn like, oh yeah, this I should have done better, that I should have done better. And then you're like, okay, the next one, well, I'll improve it here and here. And then after that one, you make 5 of those and you're like, oh yeah, well, someone made a comment about this and, oh yeah, I could improve it that way. And then the next 5, you make it a bit better. And then the next 5, you make it a bit better. So everything can be improved upon, and you got to start somewhere. So don't think it's overwhelming. Maybe the goal you're thinking of is overwhelming and where you want to get to eventually, but that's where you want to eventually get to. You're maybe thinking of someone else who does video, or how they speak, or what they write, or how they formulate words and the grasp of language. You're like, oh, I can't do that. Oh, I'm not going to try because I'm not good enough. I don't know how to do that. Well, that's no excuse to not start, because you're not going to get that immediately. You're going to have to work at improving your craft to eventually get to that place of someone who's at a higher level, a higher skill level than you, and you're thinking that you have to be there before you start. Well, then you're never going to start, ever in your life, because you have to start in order to get there. It's not get there, then start. You have to start and then improve upon yourself by actually starting and doing it, because the doing it is where you're going to learn, and then you're going to improve as you learn how to do it. And if you don't start, then that learning is never going to happen, and you're never going to get to that higher level that you want. So you start at the level you're at, and then you improve upon it. Now, words are magic. It is called spelling, yes. Spelling could be a magician, could be a sorcerer doing bad shit, could be a magician doing good, serving good, serving morality, serving truth, serving what's right. Or you can be Mr. Naughty and serving yourself, serving evil, serving involution, and letting evil run amok. So you gotta develop on yourself, and whatever you're idolizing or you have in your mind as some level that you want to get to because someone else is there and you're like, wow, look at how they do it. I want to be able to do it like that. Well, you can be able to do it like that if you work at it. You're not there yet, and do not think you're going to ever start until you get there, because you'll never get there, like I just said. So as time goes by, but you're still at the same level that you were at before, and you're like, yeah, I know I need to start. Okay, I got to start, and I want to get to here. Or you haven't started yet because you know you need to work on your courage or your confidence, overcome these limiting fear factors. Maybe it's a skill, you don't know how to create the content. And time goes by, but you're still at the same level you were at before, and you haven't worked on achieving the requirements for you to get to that next level. That means you're not working on those requirements, because you already know what those requirements are, but you're still not activating yourself. Again, this rocket ship, you need to have fire ignited in you to propel yourself forward. So you have to propel yourself forward, not even necessarily in doing the great work at first, but you have to propel yourself forward into acquiring the skills where you can eventually get to do the great work. So if you're not moving forward, if you're not upskilling, and if you haven't tried something and then looked at how you recognize it's not good enough and then try to improve upon it, if you just made something one way and then you kept doing it that one way, and then you know there's ways to improve, but you're just like, oh no, I'm not going to improve, that's just too much work, I'm just going to keep doing it this way, and that's it. Well, Are you actually fulfilling the requirements? Probably not. Maybe you can, everyone can just take their phone. Everyone's got a phone probably. And then you just point it at yourself this way. And then you just go, you speak something and then you upload it. And, maybe you could start with a 1-minute video and you go to TikTok or whatever, YouTube Shorts or whatever the kids are doing these days. And, you could start that way. But then, is that the best you can do? You got to ask yourself, ask yourself the question and don't lie. Is that the best you can do? I can guarantee you that is not the best you can do. You can do better. You can do more. Just how much are you going to have that fire ignited within you, that care, to actually want to up your game and do it a bit better? So even what I do here, I'm doing it all manually, but I could pay $20 a month or something and do StreamYard or I don't know the other one, I forget what it is, Restream. And I could have everything interactive with borders and flipping screens and bigger whenever someone talks I can make it bigger, and I can do a bunch of other stuff. So yes, I could do that, but I don't want to spend the money until I need to have the larger amount of people, and this is sufficient for my goal of having people on screen and everyone's visible. I don't have the names, so I could even do that, and then when everyone comes on, and I gotta go type up their name. And Restream and StreamYard is better because when someone comes on, they can type their own name, so the host doesn't have to do everything. So that's why those things are good, and it costs money, and I don't need to do it right now. If ever we get to the point where we're over 5 people in a stream consistently, then I'll be like, all right, StreamYard it is, or Restream, and here we go. And I could make borders, and everyone, whenever I add someone, I could have borders, and that's aesthetic stuff. So that's one way I could improve the aesthetic. It's not going to change anything about the content, but it's going to make things a little bit nicer. So there's always things that you can do, even that I can do, that I don't do. And if you're starting with a little video, then you can, instead of talking for 1 minute, you can talk for 5 minutes. And instead of making it I don't know what the limit is on TikTok, maybe they don't allow 5-minute videos, then you can upload it to YouTube just as a regular video, and it won't be a short or whatever it is because it's too long and it can't go on TikTok. And then you're going to be expounding on something instead of some 1-minute video where you're just making a bunch of claims and just shooting something. The TLDR, too long, didn't read, short attention, goldfish attention span thing, of 1 minute, you can go to 5 minutes and you can actually explain things in more detail for someone to understand why something is true, because you're not probably going to be able to do that in 1 minute. 1 minute, you're just going to make a bunch of claims about things and people are going to be like, wow, yeah, you talk about aliens and blah, 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 all this stuff. I'm not encouraging people to talk about all that, but you could try to do a 1 minute video on shadow work or what's going on in the world or why it's immoral, or talking about morality, but 1 minute's not a lot of time. So you're probably going to have to, if you actually want people to understand something, rather than hear a bunch of claims that you make, but then they got to figure out, is it true? Why is that true? You're telling me something. You're not explaining why what you're claiming is true. And that's something that we do have as a responsibility. If you're going to make a claim of truth, you're going to assert something about reality, and then you're just going to drop it there. It's a bit lazy, as far as I'm concerned, because you're not explaining, you're not giving the person the information toolkit for them to be able to understand how they can verify it themselves. If you just make a bunch of assertions about what is true about what's going on, and then that's all you give them, okay, then they got to go research it. They got to figure out, how is this true? And then they got to go look into it. But if you're giving them the tools to understand how they can verify it, because of this, because of that, and you're giving all the reasons behind it, then when someone hears it, obviously it's not going to be a 1 minute video, but you're providing the content for them to get it in one place. So you're facilitating that process of discovery of truth for them, as opposed to giving them this short soundbite, the soundbite 1 minute TLDR. This is, okay, here's my claim. There you go. Go do with it what you want. And then the person has to have that effort, have that willpower to go out there and go research it on their own. But if you're giving maybe a 10-minute video, maybe you can explain something, so then it gives that supporting reasoning, supporting evidence, maybe in some cases, where you're going to support your claim to try to justify why it is true. You're going to provide that causal dynamic, that causal power of why your claim is true, rather than just say something and then go on to the next time you're going to do a TikTok video and trying to get views, because everyone's just into, I just want to watch something for 1 minute, and you'll get a bunch of views because it's 1 minute long. And then you go to 10 minutes, well, your view count might drop, because people aren't interested in 10 minutes video. But those that are, well, they're going to be learning a lot more from your 10-minute video than they will be from your 1 minute video, because you're actually going to explain things more. That's that explanatory power and that trivium, the understanding. You're going to be providing them with a deeper understanding. And with that deeper understanding comes deeper clarity, more clarity. And you're going to be helping them to understand something more. And that is of much more value than just doing a 1 minute video where you're just making claims that people probably aren't going to look into, or don't even know where to go look to figure it out. So maybe you could do 1 minute videos for your 10-minute videos, which is maybe for your 1 hour videos. So you could break it up like that. Well, here's an hour video explaining it in detail. Here's a 10-minute video or 5-minute video summary. And then you got your 1 minute soundbite of like claim, just throwing out a bunch of claims. And then you want to learn more, go here or here. And then you got your two options. And then the people could go dig in deeper with your effort. You did the effort, you did the work, and you're providing an avenue for them to be able to dig deeper without them, without them digging themselves, or taking the shovel and digging themselves. You're doing the digging for them, because all they have to do is, here's the video. You just have to sit down and listen to me explaining it to you of why this is true. Here's why I'm asserting this in my shorter video. Anyways, all that was just to demonstrate how you can start small, go bigger, and if you're still trying to get views, there's ways to funnel people up into that higher learning path. Because that 1 minute is not a higher learning path. 5 minutes better, and an hour is good. You're going to be able to get a lot more understanding, get people onto a higher awareness of a topic, a higher consciousness, be able to elevate and raise their consciousness more by expounding up on something in greater detail, as opposed to 1 minute where you're going to be like, oh, look, I got hundreds of views, I'm super popular. Yeah, but you're not explaining anything. It's just people who are looking for their little dopamine fix, their 1 minute video, getting that little novelty fix of like, oh, here's something new. 1 minute. Okay, where's my next one new thing? I just want my next new thing. Oh, here's something to keep my attention going. Scroll. And we got to get people off of that, because it's a gateway to getting them into deeper knowledge, but it's not the deeper knowledge itself. It's just a soundbite, and if all it is sound bites, nobody's learning shit. All they're gonna do is accept claims and believe them to be true without actually knowing that they are true. But it is a gateway. It's a way to entice them into a subject matter that then they can dig into more, or you can, like I said, provide that longer form content and make that available as a link in a description, or however people do it in the videos at the end, and then they point to it and they say, here, check this out. This is my longer version. So we're talking about improving ourselves, improving our skills, So you're always going to be improving. You're going to be competing with yourself to improve yourself. If you're doing nothing to improve yourself, then you're not improving. You're just staying where you are. So if you start off making 1-minute videos, and that's where you're going to stay, well, you're ultimately not serving that greater goal of actually getting people to understand things. You're just I don't know, I guess those 1-minute videos, I view them more as like you're dipping your toes into the waters, if that's where you're starting, and trying to get more comfortable talking for longer periods of time, get in front of the camera. But you're not actually, it's impossible for you to do 1-minute videos and achieve the goal of the great work. It is not going to be done in 1-minute videos of getting people to deeply understand morality and the law of freedom. It's just not going to happen. So ultimately, it's a form of content creation. So yes, I'm being harsh on the 1-minute video creators, but you got to really think about it. Are you really getting people to understand things at a deep level, or that they can then explain it to others and teach it to others? And the answer is no. You are not in a 1-minute video. You have to do longer form content where you're going to explain things at a sufficient level of detail for them to grasp the concept in maybe not complete fullness, but a very high degree of definition, so that they understand many of the aspects and they can explain it to people and not fall into holes where someone hears something, they watch a video and they think like, oh yeah, I understand natural law, look at me, I'm going to go teach it. Then they try to teach it, and then someone asks them a question, they're like, oh, well, I never thought of that. Or they get befuddled because someone brings up an objection. They don't know how to counter that objection because they don't know the material deeply enough. So some people jump in too quickly and they haven't done enough of that collation and collection process of gaining more knowledge to have that more understanding. So then the output and the wisdom they expound can actually be sufficient to make a well-articulated argument, as opposed to potentially making a fool out of yourself, thinking you know what you're talking about, but then you realize, oh crap, I don't actually know it that well, and then you fail at your mission because you look like a bumbling boob maybe to whoever you're trying to explain something to, and then they don't take you seriously because you don't even know the subject matter, and then you lost them there. So how much closer are you to doing the work on yourself in terms of overcoming fears and the things that limit you? Or how much closer are you to developing skills now as opposed to a month ago or a year ago? The skills that you're needing to create the content for people to potentially come across, be influenced by, and take that influential knowledge and apply it in their lives to better themselves. So you got to look at how effective you are in being able to explain things for people to understand. And you can think about, well, how about a year from now? What other goals? I'm doing this here like this now. A year from now, what ways can I improve this? And sacrificing the time to try to do that. So maybe, like if I want to improve this and I got to learn other skills, well, maybe I can't do this show every week and I got to take more time and put it into however I want to improve, to learn something to make it better, and then come back and make it better. That could be something. And if you're only doing, like I keep coming back to the 1-minute videos because I view it as a severe limitation. And like I said, you could start there and point camera at yourself and you could talk for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. But you can make it even better. You could add images, and then you can get into video editing, and you can create your own images. So these are things that you can do to improve your own craft, to improve how you're going to convey the information. And if you're not doing that and you're just like, there's tons of people out there who are more popular than any of us doing any of this formalized content, and all they do is just point a camera at themselves and they get hundreds of thousands of views or whatever it is. And it's the type of content as well. Obviously, they're not doing more deep philosophical content, but a lot of people, that's good enough. But if you're trying to explain things and get concepts understood, visual aids can be a meaningful contribution to getting people to understand things. That's why I've done my infographics, because they help in that way. So if you're doing just like the bare minimum to be like, yeah, I'm doing the great work, here we go, 1 minute videos, well, and that's all you're staying at, and that's your goal is just to stay there. And if you have a goal and you're not working towards making it better, then you're like stagnating. You're just staying where you are, and that's that involutionary force. And you're not doing the great work to create what you say you want to have, which is true freedom. Because those 1 minute videos, they're not going to do it. You got to create content that can explain things. So if you don't want true freedom, then, probably not watching this. You don't care about freedom. And you're in a significant level of self-loathing. So if you do happen to watch this and you're not really caring about true freedom, well, then you don't really love yourself. You're in loathing of yourself, self-loathing, and to some degree, and self-hate. Doesn't matter how narcissistic you are, and you're like, I love myself so much. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how you're fine being enslaved and you're not willing to do anything to end even your own enslavement at a selfish level, let alone have that higher agape care where you're caring about the enslavement of everyone together, not just yourself. So you still need to work on yourself to love or care about yourself more. Pass it to you, Jerry. Got anything to add?
Yeah, again, this thought came to mind again, and I don't know if you're familiar with the game World of Warcraft, but in it,
A little bit.
yeah, essentially, you can do a lot of things, and if you die, you become a soul, and you have to go to your body and revive, sort of thing. But when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about we got to get the lesson. If not, we're just going to come back here, sort of thing. Or, you can be a soul and just watch from the sidelines, but it's not going to help at all. So, if we want true freedom, we do have to act. And learning the skills is super important. And I did write a few notes. Yeah, you mentioned use your brain. I think that is so important because it is God's gift, right? It's the best tool out there, you could say, and it's right here in between. It's right here in our skull, basically. And yeah, we have to use it. If not, we'll lose it. And the solutions lie within us, sort of thing. So yeah, start applying the critical thinking skills. And the name of my YouTube channel is Discern Fiction from Truth. I really like that name because there are a lot of things out there and lies, and it can get cloudy, like the gray areas. So this stuff is important so you can operate in accordance to natural law. And then the other thing I wrote down was, yeah, a great way to actually know what you think you know is to teach it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start teaching what I think I know. And then on the way, I'm sure I'll come across some contradictions and I'll say, all right, I got to find out what the truth is rather than just think I know and not actually know it. So, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna start the journey now, because if not, then I'll never do it. I think.
Yeah. If not now, then when? If not you, then who? You can't expect it from others if you're not willing to do it yourself. Definitely don't want to be a spectator, because yeah, this ain't no movie. This ain't like on the sidelines or in the theater, going, yay, yeah, I love this movie, it's great. You're watching people go by on the field, playing the game, getting involved, and you're just a spectator on the sidelines going, go team, go, yeah, you're doing great work, all right, you're doing awesome. And you're just, well, you're not there, you're not involved, you don't have skin in the game, like Passio says. So you do have to get involved. And yeah, that was the thing I wanted to say about the first thing you said, and then you said the second thing, and I don't even remember what it was now. Damn, I gotta write those notes, man. That's important. Yeah, just comes out of your mind and you forget.
Yeah, I was talking. What I first talked about was essentially we're gonna come right back here, and so we have to kind of morally teach others. And I used the World of Warcraft analogy, because once you die, you become a soul, but then you go right back. And then I talked about using the brain, kind of adding to what you said. So I don't know if that helps you at all.
That was after the spectator thing that you said. Well, yeah, I don't think you used the word spectator, but just watching things go by. Anyways, yeah, it's bugging me. I need to write these things down because obviously I don't have 100% recall of my previous thoughts that I had. Yeah, so I'll just continue where I was going to talk about. So I was talking about self-loathing, self-hatred. You don't have enough care within you to even care about you being enslaved, let alone you and everyone else, that we're all in this together. So to get to that point, you got to get mad at being enslaved yourself. Like that movie Network, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. That's the point you got to get to, is you got to be mad at the condition that you find yourself in. The current condition is not something positive. Overall, when you look at it objectively, in sum total, it's a negative condition. It's not a purely positive. There are positives and negatives, but because there's the negative, it's like a proposition of truths, conjunction of propositions, otherwise known as a proposition of truths table or a truth table. Is if you're making a proposition, you're proposing something, you're making a claim, and you have 3 pieces of information, and one of them is false, and each of those 3 pieces of information is what allows you to come to your conclusion, something you're proposing, your proposition. If one of those things is false, then your conclusion is necessarily false. Well, that's what it's at with our collective condition. Yes, there's many positive things, but because there's these negatives, and many of them, overall, our condition is still in the negative. It's not actually in the positive. We're not talking about net positive and net negative, taking this much negative and this much positive and seeing which one's more. Oh, we got more positive. Oh, we're in the net positive. That's not what I'm talking about. It's overall, because there's negative, it pollutes the whole thing. So it's like having a glass of water and you put a little bit of poison. Well, it's only a little bit of poison. Yeah, but that water's no more good to drink just because of that little bit of poison. Even though the majority of the water is still good water, you still got that bit of poison. So you got to care about yourself enough. You have to love yourself enough. You have to have enough self-respect. That means you have to do that shadow work to look back at yourself. That's what self-respect is. Respect is spectare, to look at, and is again, to look at again. And so you're looking at yourself again. That's self-respect. and you have to have enough self-values. You have to develop a higher valuation of yourself. We've talked about that in previous episodes here on the Great Work Launchpad regarding shadow work. And when you care for yourself enough, when you value yourself enough, when you have enough self-respect, then you're going to actually be angry at being enslaved, to the point where you're going to be motivated to do something about it. And that's that righteous anger. So the anger is going to motivate you to do something about the condition that you find abhorrent, that you're angry about. So if you're not, it's not that you always have to be angry. I'm not angry about it, it's like you move on from that. But it's not because I've moved on from being angry about that condition that I don't have the fuel to do the work. I still have the fuel to do the work because I'm in a state of being where I've activated the care. The anger has brought me to care more, so my care is activated, and I don't let the care die out. I don't let that flame die out. So it keeps me going. The fire is still there to propel me. That care, that drive, that motivation is still there to drive me. But if you don't have it yet, it might be because you're not angry enough yet. Maybe because you don't value yourself enough yet. That you haven't looked at yourself to determine your own self-worth and your infinite potential, and you don't care about yourself enough. So these are all aspects of shadow work that you might need to do to then first get angry and be motivated to do something and care enough to do something, and then don't let that care die out. And that having that righteous indignation is so important. And Mark Passio has that presentation on the sacred gift of anger that goes into this. It's not that. I think the church's 7 deadly sins, one of them's anger. I don't know them by heart, but I think it is. And you gotta have that anger, because I don't know if you can actually go from like you're oblivious to this, you learn about it, you never once get angry, and then you get activated into doing the great work. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just have a hard time seeing how anyone can never actually be angry about, what has happened in the world in the past. You learn about something and how horrible it is, or what's still going on, and your own condition, and you never once get angry at the realization of that reality. I just don't see it. Not likely. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I don't see it as very likely. So maybe it's happened to people, and people are doing the great work and they've never gotten angry, or they've never gotten mad as hell about it to then help in that ignition process. But yeah, righteous indignation, very powerful, very useful. Anger is not just a negative. It's not a sin. It can be detrimental, but it can also be a great force positive for good. So first you have to get mad as hell and not take it anymore. Obviously, we're all still taking it. Take it. We're still taking it because we're still in this condition and we're not ended on our own. I'm still taking it. It's not like I said, well, I'm a god of the universe and I'm just going to make things change all by myself, snapping my fingers or through my thoughts. Or, I'm just going to end it and there you go. I'm not in it anymore, so I'm not taking it anymore because I ended my life, so I'm not under the submission anymore. But that's not the way out. So you're still going to be taking it. So with the, mad as hell and not going to take it anymore, you have to have that righteous indignation to not want to just be subservient, to be submissive to it, and you're going to do something about it. That's more the spirit of, you're not going to take it because you're going to try to do something about it. Obviously, it's still going to be there. you're still going to be in physical enslavement. So technically, you're still going to be taking it, but it's that spirit of you're not going to take it, so you're going to do something about it. You're going to use the anger as a fuel, and so you do something, and not just anything. You have to know what to do. Hence those requirements. You can't just be like, yeah, I'm going to end freedom, and I'm just going to talk about what the WEF is doing. I'm going to talk about digital ID and all these little symptoms of the underlying problem, all these effects. And, you know, like I mentioned last week, and maybe the week before, that's the easier content because it's always happening. They're always doing that. They're always got up to their diabolical plans and trying to implement them. But just knowing about it isn't going to stop it. You have to know what makes it an evil plan, what makes it wrong, what makes it immoral, so that everyone can stop falling for these things. And until everyone knows that, then they could just fall for the next thing. And like, oh yeah, I know about this one, and then they come up with another diabolical thing to trick you and deceive you and manipulate you into accepting what they want. And because you're not analyzing, you're not critical thinking about it, and you're just like, oh yeah, that sounds good, and you're not analyzing, well, is it? What is good? What is right? What is moral? Is it against those things? So you have to know what those things are. If something is against it, then you have to analyze what that thing they're proposing is. What is all of it encompassing? And if it's coming from government, well, you could tell them where to shove it, where the sun don't shine, because it's coming from government. And then you could take their idea, if it's a good idea, and you could try to implement it in a free, voluntary way, and then that would be a good idea. But if it's coming from government and it's going to be implemented through them, then no, it's not a good way to do it. Yeah. So if you've never been angry to some degree at realizing you're enslaved, then there's probably a problem with you. So that's why I'm thinking, like, I don't think it's actually possible for someone to have never been angry at the realization that they're enslaved and just be like, I'm enslaved. Well, all right, I better care to stop my enslavement. Well, I'm pretty sure the first time upon realizing that you're enslaved, you're like, holy shit, fuck, it's true. Oh my God, damn. Oh my, and then you get mad. You're like, what? Okay, and I'm gonna do something about it. And like I said, maybe not. Maybe there's rare cases where it doesn't happen, but good for you if you've never had to do that and you're actually out there making content about morality, or the peripherals as I refer to them, to eventually get people to understand objective morality so that we can create true freedom. Yeah, I'll end it there. If you wanted to add anything, Jerry, go right ahead. And hey, Rick. Yeah, I was on Crypt Rick's show 2 weeks ago, or last week. I think it was 2 weeks. No, last week. I don't remember. Time and me. Sometimes the time, the things just flow and it melds into each other. Might have been last week. No, it was the week before that. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Anyway,
gotcha.
It's coming up on Crypt Rick's local show. All right, Jerry. Last
Excellent.
words.
I'm gonna have to watch that or listen to it. Last words. I think you made a great point bringing up the anger, because I think Mark has said that you need that anger because that leads to courage. I think that's what he said. And I want to say he also said that if you don't experience the anger, then there's something broken inside of you. So those are claims, but they do require some deep thought. And I just think I think someone needs to first know about objective morality to then get angry. But I also think that if someone doesn't get angry, then maybe they're being a coward in a sense, because that's what will lead them to courage, if I'm correct. And I loved everything you said. This gets me fired up, Kris. So you made some great points, and yeah, I'm kind of curious what came to mind earlier about the sideline thing, but hey, maybe
Yeah, it
we
was
can
the other
remember.
thing you talked about after that, and yeah, I gotta write notes because it just goes out.
But yeah, something also I wanted to mention was the shadow work, because the sorcerers, they are evil and they just want to mind control people, and we as individuals need to do that shadow work to make sure we control ourselves, and then we can go and sort of influence others to govern themselves. So I'll end it with choose love over fear. That's it.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, or just a minute ago, that if you don't have the courage, then you're in cowardice, and that anger can get you there. And instead of having anger, what you could have is fear, which is why you'd be then engaging in cowardice instead of courage to do something about it. Because instead of having anger about it, um, you know objective morality, and you learn that you're enslaved, or you learn about objective morality, you learn that you're enslaved, and instead of being angry about it, you're afraid, because you're afraid of those who are already subjugating you, and you're afraid that they're going to hurt you more, or something like that. So yeah, definitely that fear keep you in cowardice as opposed to using anger to get out of that fear. Again, another useful aspect of the anger to drive you forward, to overcome in spite of the fear. The anger is going to help propel you forward to do something about it. So thanks for coming by, Jerry. Appreciate you coming in and speaking your using your voice and speaking and adding to that choir of truth. And anyone who tuned in, and we'll be back next Wednesday to continue talking about more fear or love as the motivation that drives you, and how to get more into that force and that propensity of love as opposed to that serving that involutionary force of fear. So have a good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Take care. Peace.